All right, Travis Roeder, you wrote an excellent piece
you did.
for Our Daily Bears this past Sunday, sounding the horn of the Gary Bohannon hype train. And I was loving it. But I want to talk to you. We'll get into sort of his stats and his performance in the Kansas game here in a few minutes. But for the purposes of this conversation, what is it that you see in Gary's game that you believe will translate into tougher competition? Because the competition thus far, it's everybody is, we've had to fall all over ourselves in the podcast, giving the caveat, qualifying ourselves. The competition hasn't been that great. But you think that what you've seen things that you believe will transcend level of competition and that he will continue to perform at a high level going forward. So what is it that you see?
Well, I had to pull up the article while you were saying that, just so I could remember the points that I made. But honestly, I couldn't even tell you his stats this season. I really don't know. I mean, I assume they're incredible, but and whatever they are, he's not going to perform that well the rest of the year as far as the stats go. But I think a lot of it is like, so I've been kind of off and on writing about football and stuff for 7-8 years now. And when I first got started, I like to evaluate high school prospects. And obviously, if you evaluate a high school prospect, you can't just look at level of competition, because the whole idea, right, is you need to look at what they bring to the table, and then you're projecting how they're going to do it in the future, right?
Right.
And then over the past 2 or 3 years, I've really gotten more into, like, obviously I've always loved Baylor and the team itself and care about the team, but I really kind of tried to care more about like evaluating the guys on the team. And so it's kind of the same idea, right? And so kind of those points that I brought up in the article is, if you just look at stats, if you just look at maybe like how the ball looks in the air or how open the receivers are and such, you're not going to get a good idea of what happens in the future. But there are some things that a quarterback can do that can show you how well they're going to do. And so like one of those things is like Gary has just been awesome in the pocket. I think Coffee can tell you from his experience playing on the defensive side of the ball, there's a huge difference when you're rushing the quarterback against a guy who is going to kind of freak out and look at the ground or start running as soon as you get back there versus a guy who stays calm and looks downfield. And, there have been situations in these first 3 games where guys are in his face, and there's not really any reason to suspect that just because the guy that's in his face is better against Iowa State, that all of a sudden he's just going to start losing his mind. I mean, maybe, but probably not, right? And then there's a few other things that I listed too. His arm is incredible. I think y'all have talked about that plenty. I mean, just the way he's able to stretch the field. His arms are not going to get weaker the week that we play Iowa State. That whole concept is still going to be there. And then the final aspect of it is, I think, Peter, you and I might have talked about this on Twitter last year with Charlie and what they were trying to make him do reading defenses. And yeah. I think what we specifically talked about was like, why are they trying to make him do this? I mean, this is idiotic. Most college quarterbacks, I mean, when I say most, I mean like 97, 98% of college quarterbacks are not asked to do much more than detect whether it's man or zone, and then maybe read one defender's hips to see which way they're going. And then that's it. That's it. But in these first 3 games, we've seen that Gary has moved from receiver 1 to receiver 2. And I'm on video here, but my head's moving across. I mean, there are plenty of examples of him, finding out whether it's man or zone. So he does that initial thing that every college quarterback can do, but he's going beyond that. And again, there's not any reason to think that he's able to do post-snap reads against bad teams and then suddenly isn't going to do it against hard teams. Of course, all of this means that like it's going to be sped up. It's going to be against better players. It's probably not going to be as effective, but still these kind of like innate traits are still going to be there. So right. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but hopefully
that's great. That's really excellent. And it's encouraging after, for everything that Charlie brought to the table. And I mean, you can't deny that the kid was a gamer. The game's on the line in the fourth quarter. You wanted Charlie Brewer back there with the football he would go out and make plays. But there were times where we felt sort of the limitations of his game to a really, I don't know, a fairly acute way, especially last year. I mean, like you said, our conversation about why are they making him try and do something that wasn't part of his game? And, Aranda tried to work around that towards the end, and I mean, to limited success.
Yeah.
But with Gary, it's refreshing to see him make progressions and to actually do that. And it's been a really long time since we've had a quarterback that has done that, gone through a true progression read as opposed to just reading one defender.
Yeah, it's been since the guy that Coffee played with, since Robert. I mean, he's the last guy. He's really the last guy that regularly did that for the Baylor offense. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's encouraging. It's exciting to see. And yes, caveat against the level of competition, and he won't be able to do what he's done to this extent. But given the fact that he hasn't had just a tremendous amount of experience, and even what he looked like in the spring game, the progression that we've seen based on kind of what we were expecting to see starting the season to where we are now it's frankly a revelation to an extent. I mean, it's exciting, and yeah, we'll see what he looks like against really stiff competition coming up on Saturday. But thus far,
I think it's a really important point to think about with, yeah, the competition's not getting any better, but Baylor hosted 2 open practice scrimmages, and then they had the spring game, and I was at all 3 of those in the spring. And the first practice, he did not look good at all.
Yeah.
Second one, he looked a little bit better, and then in the spring game, he looked like clearly the best quarterback. And then this fall, he looks totally different than he did in the spring game. So, I mean, this is a guy who's in the first year of a new offense. He came from a tiny high school in Earl, Arkansas, where he was never asked to really throw the ball with any regularity. I mean, I don't really know what getting better for him means in the sense of like statistics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But why would you say that he's going to get any worse? I mean, all the evidence we have so far is that he's done nothing but got leaps and bounds better this year. There's no reason to suspect that he's not going to just keep improving throughout the year, even if it doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. It might just show up on the field.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I look for, particularly with somebody that's in Gary's position, is once you've established who the starter is, there's typically a pretty significant leap in their productivity because the offense then starts to get built around that player and their skill set. And so I think when we kind of talk about what we saw with Charlie in the past few years, Charlie's game was typically with his feet and then the ability to scramble and extend plays. So really you saw it, longer passes down the field. Really that swing pass was good, but any intermediate passes across the middle, unless it had a play action and like kind of a dump to a crossing route, was really outside of his wheelhouse, let alone this deep out route that Gary throws with just a ridiculous amount of ease. If you think about one of the hardest passes to make, in college football, number one, of course, is the deep ball. That's why when you get somebody that can throw the deep ball, it's such an effect on the game. But really, it's that deep out. Because if you can time that up, that's just a difficult route for a lot of these teams that are running cover 3 to cover. And so he can really kind of put the ball right on receivers with good timing, with good pace, and with your words, you're saying, Travis, regularity, right? Like you just see it consistently. And so the thing that I'm the most encouraged about looking at Gary here over the last few weeks is his consistency. Like it doesn't matter what type of throw it is. It's not like you're seeing a bunch of 50-50 balls, right? It's not like it's these fluky plays that have led us to success on the offensive side of the ball. It's consistent running on the ground and it's consistent quarterback play. And we just haven't really seen that for a while. And so, I mean, I was on that train of people that was really shocked when he won that role. We didn't think he was going to be around this year. We thought he was going to transfer and probably be somewhere, in the Sun Belt. But a guy that, has the stature, has the arm talent, and of course he has that X factor where he can run the football. I mean, you're seeing it all come together. Once again, we don't know exactly what we're going to get from this yet because we haven't faced a real defense just yet. We're going to see that here on Saturday. But you got to be encouraged by what you've seen so far because for what we've asked him to do, he's done it with flying colors. And so it's been exciting to see his development. And I think he's got a ton of potential, maybe more than we gave him credit for.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that throughout the quarterback competition, there was a lot of speculation that it was Zeno's job to lose, and a lot of hype from fans based on, and we've talked about it a couple of times on the show, just based on 2 passes in the Oklahoma game, and completely discounting and like thinking about Gary in the way that his body of work was from that game and from the Sugar Bowl too, and which was dude was playing injured. And he actually had garbage time in some garbage time stuff in one of the earlier games that year. and looked, or maybe it was in 2018, I forget. But he looked really good in those games, but we completely forgot about that. And basically, we're looking at the quarterback competition at the extremely limited number of snaps in the Big 12 championship game and the Sugar Bowl. And that was a really terrible way to go about looking at it. And I, for one, I'm really impressed with what we've seen thus far out of him. And I mean, Aranda has talked about it multiple times, where he talks about, Gary's work ethic. He's the hardest working player on the team. He's early in the Hires complex, looking at film every morning. He's there when Aranda shows up. He apparently is having like team only film review sessions on like Tuesday nights or something like that, which is, I'm sorry, that's just incredible. And you love to see that kind of work ethic out of your quarterback, and really see him take the reins of leadership with this team. And I think that the entire team is benefiting from that in a way that we haven't really anticipated or really expected to see. So,
man, because I think, like, now that we think about it, like, we're turned 17 out of 22 starters from last year on this team, but
something like that.
Yeah, but you had so much in 2020 that went wrong that it's really hard to remember that we're only 2 years removed from a Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
And I think what we're finding is it's maybe not so much that we fell off, kind of like we did with Rule, who's like kind of, his deal was scorch the earth and then bring everything back around. I think this team could have been pretty good last year had we got the coaching staff maybe right first time around. I think Grimes had, a top 3 offense last year.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that, Aranda realized that he had some mistakes when he picked up that offensive coaching staff and corrected it. But you're seeing a lot of the components. Of course, there's people that, are playing on Sunday, quite a few guys from that 2019 team that are playing on Sunday right now. But a lot of the bones that built that team are kind of still around.
Absolutely.
And so I think you're seeing that last year was more so of a fluke than an expectation, and that this year is kind of that follow through of kind of getting everything sorted out. Yeah.
One of the things that's kind of made me laugh about non-Baylor fans' expectations for this season is, I think people forget just how talented this team is. And I don't say that like in a truly like homeristic way, but I mean, Baylor's been recruiting as the 3rd, 4th, 5th best recruiting team in the Big 12 for the past 8-9 years. And it's kind of like funny that like Texas fans, UT fans are always saying like, well, they're like,
get him, Travis. Get him.
The cupboard was bare.
But then they say, like, oh, it's Sark. And I actually agree with them. They're saying, hey, if we get great coaching, we have one of the 2 or 3 most talented rosters in the league. There's no reason that we can't just immediately get back, or within a season or two at least, get back to the number 2 or 3 team in the league. Why, or, top 2. Sure, I agree with that. If you get great coaching with great players, why not? But it's kind of funny that people have seemingly forgot that about Baylor, in the sense of like, oh, they're 2-7, they're in 2-17. It's like, this is still a top 4 or 5 roster in the league. And when you combine that with good coaching, there's no reason they shouldn't be a top 4 or 5 team in the league. So I think it's kind of funny, just people like you were just saying, Peter, just like, people are just kind of just like letting, or excuse me, that was Coffee that was just saying that, it's like team's not that far removed, and it's still very talented. So it's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that it's encouraging. Dare I say that it might have be a good thing that specifically thinking about the offensive line, there was a lot of raw talent with that offensive line that hasn't been really developed. I mean, we talked in the preseason about Khalil Keith, Xavier Newman-Johnson, these guys who kind of hyped, kind of excited when we landed these recruits. We were really excited about them, and then they came in and they have not performed up to the potential that we thought that they could. And you kind of think, maybe it's a good thing that there wasn't a whole lot of coaching going on last year, to the point that it negatively impacted them, so that you still have this sort of you have a little bit of a raw.
You saying a clean slate?
No, not the cupboard's not bare. That's the thing. It's that Mateos can come in and mold the clay of these guys into what he wants them to be, and that's why they've responded so well and so quickly.
Man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I love watching the game with former offensive guys because I've got a pretty biased set of eyes. Like, I'm looking at the unmarked lineman. I'm looking at the receiver that's off the ball. If there's a tight end, like that's basically where my eyes are. And then, of course, I kind of follow the ball, right? Because I want to see, how everything plays off. And so I watch typically the first half of every home game with Seth Russell. And then I watch this past game with Troy Baker, who Troy played right tackle right after I did and won a couple of Big 12 championships with Bryce Petty and all. And so I was asking him, I was like, okay, I understand that we're playing against Kansas. And so, like, our expectations here are tempered as to what we're looking at. But I was like, all right, is this coaching that much better on the offensive line? Or, like, are they just matured? He's like, dude, it's coaching. He's like, it's fundamental. He's like, it's their hands, it's their feet, it's their attack angle, it's the fact that they're working together. He's like, it's fundamental, and it's a game changer. And he's like, if you look at the offensive line last year, like, it just didn't look right. Granted, we know we weren't healthy. We were sick last year. Like, we very rarely could, field an entire offensive line. But he was saying from a coaching standpoint, what he's seen in the development across these guys is reminiscent of success that they had on those offensive lines that were real nasty back when we were playing.
Yeah.
Well, I think any fan can. I think it's really helpful when you slow the video down, especially for offensive line. But just take a play from last year, literally any play from last year, put it down at 0.25 speed, and watch the O-line's feet. You'll see that everyone's doing different things. Their hands are all over the place. Their feet are all over the place. They're letting guys run through. This year, when you turn on the tape, I know it's kind of a coaching-ism or whatever, but the O-line is operating as one. But it looks like that. It looks like one of these monsters with 5 hands, right, where everything is working in coordination. I mean, their feet are moving together, their hips are moving together, their hands are moving together. I mean, that's all coaching. Obviously, it takes the talent, but yeah, like I said, I mean, Khalil Keith is rated the #1 offensive tackle in Pro Football Focus right now in the country. Is he that good? No, because it's not opponent adjusted. But
sure,
I think we can all agree that, yeah, I mean, and like I was saying, it's fun. I think any fan can really just can notice it, and I think anytime a fan notices good coaching, it's just really fun to see. So
right, and the good news about that, yeah, it's not opponent adjusted, but he's doing it against. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing against that level of competition. Last year, we didn't really do that against Kansas, which is that one game where we have that level of opposition. So
I like to say with PFF, it's not an accurate, your rating isn't your rating in the sense of Khalil Keith is not the #1 offensive tackle in college football right now. But you know what? He's probably not the worst, and he's definitely not in the bottom half. It means he's playing really well.
Yeah.
How well? I mean, you can kind of quibble with that, but clearly the offensive line is playing well. And if people want to argue about whether they're the best or the 50th in the nation, that's a heck of a lot better than 125th that we were last year or whatever. So,
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, by the way, this is our daily podcast, and we are recording on Tuesday, September 21st, a day early. And we're recording while it's still light outside. So this is kind of an unusual occurrence.
Weird.
It is very weird. But Travis Roeder is, if you don't follow him on Twitter, you need to, because his Sunday film breakdowns that he's started doing are cannot miss tweets. I mean, they are phenomenal. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job covering this team. And I just wanted to say I know it's long overdue to have you on the show, but I'm really glad that we finally got it to work. So thanks, Fank, for heading to Hawaii so that we could have you on.
No, it's funny. My wife said, actually tweeted, I think her account's private right now, but she was like, Sunday mornings are a lot more fun around this house now, because last year I'd just be tweeting, wow, this sucks. Yeah. This place sucks.
What do you want me to break down about this game?
And everyone would there would be 4 people saying, yeah, I agree. This looks terrible. What's happening here? And now it's just people are just wow, this looks great. And I'm just having a great time. So anyway, it's fun.
It's funny because we launched the podcast in 2013, at the height of, everything was phenomenal and wonderful. And it was super easy to do. And then Coffee decides to join in 2017, the first year that we go 1-11. And
you got some Anu Solomon thoughts, Coffee?
and it was, the thing is that recording the show was so much fun, but like that was the only thing that was fun. Actually talking about the games and talking about them for like, how are we?
It was a rough start. It was a rough start.
It was a rough
nice.
start.
It was nice because I realized like you guys know and pay attention to so much more than I could possibly watch on my own, and so it made the show and the post game fan forum so much more fun because I already had like kind of a run through, and I was like, I like your game with these boys. Let's do this. But we suck,
man. Peter, I know we're kind of running a little long on the intro here, but I do have one question for Koff that I feel like listeners would really enjoy getting to hear.
Sure.
And that is, like, over the last 2 or 3 years, I've probably written the sentence, a quarterback who can stretch the field both horizontally and vertically totally changes the game for the defense. And you can kind of try and explain that to fans in many ways possible. But I just thought, like, as a guy who played linebacker in the Big 12, a position where you're running sideline to sideline, what does it mean to have a quarterback that can, like that pass to Fleeks this past week was a 40-yard out route. You only went, 10 yards down the field, but it was a 40-yard throw. What does that do to a defense's psyche before the game?
Yeah, well, like you have to honor the quarterback at that point. Like if a quarterback can't make a throw, then they can run that route till they're blue in the face, but it doesn't mean anything. And so when you have somebody that can make all the throws, like, shoot, man, when I was a freshman, we had like Sam Bradford, Graham Harrell, Colt McCoy, like Robert. Like we had all these quarterbacks out there that could make that throw and make it consistently. And you just caught yourself second guessing, like, do I really want to run out? Because like if you run out there and you say that I'm like a cover 3 linebacker and I'm like way out in the, like, into the curl deep, almost pushing under a corner or under a deep route, like they had monsters at the running back position too that could just like, boom, they do a little sprint draw, and all of a sudden, you're 15 yards away and you got to try to catch up with somebody. And so when you've got a quarterback that can stretch the field, it opens up the playbook. And it's all about not being one-dimensional. Because if you can look at the game and know, okay, either he's not going to throw the football or it's going to go here, like the predictability of an offense is like, it's all percentages game, right? It's all like probabilities of what's going to happen in this formation, in this look. And when you're limited to what can happen in a certain formation, a certain look, a certain down and distance in a certain position on the field, like that's where like big plays happen on defense because you can read it. You can say, okay, like I know he can't make this throw. I know that from, we're inside the 30s. Like if they're on, 3rd and 10 from this point in this formation, you're going to see this play. But we know he can't make that throw. So that means that they got to do X, Y, and Z. And so it lets you run all these different scenarios in your head before. When you've got somebody that can make all the throws, like that playbook is open and you don't know what's going to hit you. And so, especially when you're running the football the way that we are right now, I think we're averaging 320 yards a game on the ground or something like that. Granted, take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not adjusted for the like you said, for the people that we're playing against. But shoot, man, when you can average 8 yards or 9 yards of carry on the ground and it's 3rd and 10, depending on where you are on the field, like, Gary can take off the top 2. Like that just puts you in a whole world of like this guessing game of like, shoot, which arrow in the quiver are they going to hit us with now?
That is a good, actually. Let's transition. Let's talk a little bit more about the Kansas game in particular. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on it. My 30,000 foot view of this game is kind of interesting because thinking back about the game in the immediate aftermath, I felt way worse about it than I did after a review of it. And I realized that basically 3 possessions in the second quarter I was allowing 3 possessions in the second quarter to color my perception of the entire game. And it was the offensive possession, the 2 offensive possessions basically sandwiching their 1 touchdown drive. And it's because the offense didn't execute well. And then the defense sort of looked like it fell asleep in that drive. And that drive actually was extended by just a terrible pass interference penalty that where their feet got tangled up. That's not pass interference. And but still, drive extended, they end up scoring their touchdown. And man, you had that going into the half with like this, just left a bad taste in my mouth. Watching it back again and looking at your sort of recap tweets made me realize this game was not close. It was, even though the score was 14-7 at halftime, it still wasn't close. And Baylor was like, at half, Gary even said it in his post game. It's like, we realized we're better and we should play better. And so they did. They came out and they just destroyed them in the second half. And it was dominant. And so that was way longer than my usual quick 30,000 foot view. But
I love it. I love it. Dig in.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Travis, I'm usually the one that they're like, hey, what's your 30-foot view, Koff? And I just word vomit for 5 minutes. And they're like, nah, they're as I go down each point that we're going to make after that. And so, no, my 30,000 foot view is that, we were just better. My expectation going into that game was I don't want to see any type of challenge. I want to see the offensive line look exactly the way it looked against TSU. I want to see Gary go out there and throw the ball exactly the way that he did against Texas State, even though he didn't get that touchdown, which we won't talk about. I wanted to see the running backs, goodness gracious, Tay McWilliams. I want to see the running backs. I want to see that stable of running backs we had, and then defensively go out there and just dominate. I didn't want to have storylines off of this game.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have things to talk about. I wanted to go out there, take care of business, stay healthy, and then prepare for this pretty big game that we have coming up this week.
Travis, what about you?
I mean, I think I tweeted at halftime, Peter, you should have been assuaged. Is that how you said that word?
Yeah.
Assuaged.
That's right.
By my tweet. I mean, I think at halftime, Baylor was averaging 7.5 yards per play, and Kansas was averaging 3.5. You're not going to lose a game with that kind of disparity. I know that the score was a little wonky, but so I think what I tweeted was, look, Baylor needs to keep doing what it's doing, and the score will rectify itself. And that's pretty much what happened. Aranda actually mentioned at halftime, and I was going to ask you about this, Koff, what this is like as a defense, especially early in the year, because what he said was, hey, they broke out that wishbone formation where they had the three backs in the backfield alongside the quarterback, and they were doing the interesting stuff where two of them would go block, one of them would run a fake handoff, and then the quarterback would be able to kind of run off of them. And he said, look, we just need to get in there and adjust. We just weren't ready for it. So I was going to ask you, Koff, what is that like as a defense when they come out in a totally new formation? They've got a totally new set of plays, and hey, we just need to get to halftime so that the coach can draw it up on the whiteboard for us and we can know what to do and not just be guessing. I'd be interested to hear what you had to say about that, Koff.
Yeah, I think it helps when the team's not that good. Because
right.
we had that happen to us against Wake Forest in 2009. They just got a new offensive coordinator. We're on the road. We go to them. And then in the first drive, the first 2 or 3 drives, they came out in this wishbone. We did not spend a single play practicing that during the offseason. And so we had to go to the sideline and draw it up. And then it was the same situation. I get to halftime. Okay, you guys realize you got to trust your eyes. The guard pulls here. That still means the flow's going this way. And this is how you fit. And we end up winning that game. Now, another opportunity where they line up in something we didn't expect was in the Texas Bowl against Illinois. They had this unbalanced formation that we didn't expect, and we never adjusted to it. And so, it's twofold, right? One is if you're superior talent, you'll get away with it. Number two, if your coaching can adjust to it, you're good. But if it's superior talent to you and you don't adjust, it gets nasty real quick. So, I was impressed.
So the last thing I'll say about the game, Peter, just overall is like Koff said, just better. I mean, Kansas's defensive tackles looked like 6'8" Texas high school defensive tackles. I mean, they were terrible. Baylor was running the ball 10 yards of play. It was very much just, do what you got to do. Another week to execute, move on, and it's about to get a lot tougher.
Yeah, you saw that on both sides of the ball. You saw was looking at the stats, and we were rushing. We averaged 6.8 yards per carry on the
which
ground.
Is insane.
Yeah,
I don't know if fans realize that. If you have a good game, you're at 4.5.
Yeah,
I mean 6.5 is insane.
Well, that's
great.
That's actually a step backwards from the Texas State game where we averaged 9.5 yards per carry.
Oh my god!
No,
which we thought was a little bit fluky, but then it's okay. Even if you're averaging 3 yards a carry. That's it. We used to have a joke back in high school. It's what's 3 + 3 + 3? It's that's 3 plays and a first down.
Yeah.
Right. If you get 3 yards a carry, you get a first down. And so, something like 6, you even chop that in half, and it's that's still not bad, especially when you can throw the football. So
yeah, and Kansas wasn't able to do either. We held them to 3.3 yards per carry. And on passing downs, 3.2 yards per attempt. which just for comparison purposes, Bohannon, or I guess the team, because that includes some garbage time in there as well, but Bohannon and Zeno were throwing 11.2 yards per attempt. So that's a little bit more normal of what you want to see. 3.2 it's pretty bad. And
what was their total yards per play? I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, total yards per play. Let's see if I can pull that up really quick. Yes, it's 3.3 total.
Yeah, 3.3
yeah.
versus the 8.
I tweeted this out. I don't have an easy way to look up past numbers. That's like something that I guess like football SID offices and ESPN does. But Baylor outgained them by 5.1 yards per play. And there's a stat called success rate. It's not really worth getting into here, but it measures the percentage of your plays that are successful, and it defines them in different ways. And Baylor was plus 30% there essentially, and I was like 30% success rate and 5.1 yards per play. That's probably the biggest butt whooping Baylor has put on an FBS opponent in 7 years, maybe. I mean, it was dominant.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I'll say about that.
No, that's excellent. There was something I was going to say and I've totally lost it. Oh, I remember what it was. It was success rate. Yeah, that's one of the S&P Plus stats that we've talked about quite a bit. It's been a while since we've talked about it on the show, but I like throwing out the advanced stats here and there. And I haven't really spent much time with it yet, just because the projections are so heavily weighted and they really don't love us because of last year. And I think
FEI and stuff is coming around, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. FEI is improving. It's interesting. We'll see how it all shakes out. I feel like there's been a little bit too much of a discount on Baylor, but you see it coming around. But yeah, two things I wanted to hit on the offense. There were two plays that stuck out to me. And I think I tweeted it, and then it was one of the GIFs in your recap, Travis, was Gary's throw to Drew Estrada, where he steps back, 5-step drop, 7-step drop, I forget. Pocket kind of collapses around him. There's pressure coming from the sides. And instead of taking off and running or panicking, he steps up into the pocket, stops, plants, and makes just a perfect throw to Drew Estrada on the left side, where he's well covered, maybe even interfered with a little bit, and only Estrada can catch the football. Nobody, the defender doesn't have a chance to catch that ball. Estrada pulls it in for the first down.
And where were his eyes that whole time he was back in the pocket, Peter?
I mean, he was looking around. He was making his progressions. I mean,
that's they were downfield. Is what I'm trying to say. And I don't remember how much I went into this at the beginning of the show, but that's what I'm talking about. When you can evaluate that in a guy. I mean, guys either have that or they don't. It's a natural ability. It's pocket presence. I mean, you hear the talking heads in NFL draft when they're evaluating players for the NFL draft talk about pocket presence all the time. But some guys, when people are around their feet or they're coming around their backside, I mean, their eyes go down to the ground and they start looking to where they can run. I mean, we saw that for the last 3 or 4 years with Charlie.
Yeah.
So for Gary to keep his eyes downfield and then, like you said, deliver a perfect ball. I mean, he could have sailed that ball 10 yards over Estrada's head, and I still would have been like, wow, that's incredible pocket presence.
Yeah.
But for him to put the ball on him too, I mean, it was just great.
And
terrific.
I tweeted it in the moment. That was the play that I was like, the man's poise in the pocket is something it's been 5 years since we've seen. And it's so refreshing. It's just, it's something that's really refreshing to me. The other play that stuck out to me wasn't actually a completion. It was 3rd and 6, second quarter after their touchdown. It was Gary, like the pocket collapses. He gets pressure from the backside. I think he's even like hit on his back foot, but he's still launches the ball, and what stuck out to me was he launches the ball 50 yards down the field. Ebner probably should have caught the ball, but he what stuck out to me was the ease. I mean, he just flicked it, and it was 50 yards down the field with power. And I know we've talked about sort of the weakness of Gary's game is accuracy in the deep ball, but that ball was there. Ebner probably should have adjusted and caught it. It was right there for him. But just the ease, the power that he had on that throw was something that it just stuck out to me. It was one of those moments that it's like, okay, wow. I feel like I haven't seen that. Last year we talked so much about how Charlie felt like he was having to put everything in his throws to get the ball 15 yards down the field. And this was just effortless 50 yards. It's just something.
That was what would frustrate me. Sometimes people be like, look at his arm. It looks great here. And it's like, well, yeah, it's a clean pocket and he's putting everything into it to go 45, 50 yards. I mean, it's another thing to, like you were saying, have guys at Gary's feet, and it was just effortless. I mean, I think that play probably impressed everyone, Peter. It was great.
Yeah. Abram Smith, fantastic again. Had another 100 plus yardage day on 16 carries. Ebner, 72 yards on 12 carries. Little bit, the fumble. We had a couple of fumbles in this game that were a little bit frustrating. You want to see those taken care of, and we thought we had them handled sort of after Texas State or Texas Southern, but for those to raise their heads, it's a bit of a concern going forward. You really don't want to gift Iowa State the football with any kind of excellent field position, so that's a concern. It wasn't really a significant issue in this game, but it's one of those things that makes you kind of a little concerned for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, you can work on turning the ball over. Like I want to talk once again kind of about the running back position, because this is, in my opinion, where we're made or break, or we either make it or we break, because we have always needed kind of that downhill between the tackles, get 3 yards when we need it type runner. Like we haven't really had it since Jalen Hurd, and so last year we saw us suffer often on 3rd and 4th down because we didn't have a running back that could go get it. Lovett, we kind of hoped he was the guy. Had some injury issues. As talented as Treston Ebner is, he's not the between the tackles guy. That's not his game, and I don't think that limits his ability to be a successful NFL player by him not being the guy that plays between the tackles. But Abram Smith.
Did you see that defensive back on his touchdown? I mean, that dude, I wouldn't blame him if he never tries to make that tackle again.
He'll never, like you see it, right? Like there's like when you see like a running back like crossing the goal line and you see like a safety just kind of like tap him on the hips. Like that's because an Abram Smith at some point in his career hit him, man. Right?
Props. There you go.
This guy, I think when he made contact, he had like slipped down to his knees and then tried to put his face in Abram's belly, and it didn't work.
Just not great. Not great.
And I was trying to figure out, like, when they moved him back, because we knew he was pretty talented. But here's the thing: is like, there's a lot of creativity that's required to be a good running back, and like to be a good linebacker, you just kind of have to be downhill and like get into coverage when you need to. And like there's a couple, and I think he maybe even highlighted these on a couple different times. Travis, like his cutbacks, like him starting to field better, and him like, and then when he gets to you, like he's violent, like there's a punch behind it. Linebackers get tired of that, especially in the Big 12. Like if you can run a hard, like downhill football, and I mentioned Tay McWilliams too. Like there was another DB that tried to throw his body. It may have even been a linebacker at Tay McWilliams and just slid off of him, and he ran another 10 yards afterwards. And so, man, if this, you compare this offensive line with the running backs that we have and the ability to kind of mix things up, like we've looked like a disciplined football team with the exception of a couple turnovers, Peter, that you were talking about. And that's a pretty dangerous thing, is the talent and the discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, Koff, I was going to say with the linebacker stuff with Abram, I don't think it's an accident that he's hitting those cutbacks because, as a linebacker, most defenses in modern college football, they run with 2 inside linebackers now, right? And generally on either play, one of them has a defined gap responsibility. He's saying, I have to hit this A gap, I have to be in this spot and take up this space. A lot of times, though, the other one is kind of a more free-flowing defender where he's following the ball and he's trying to figure out where the running back's going. And so I don't think it's an accident that after Abram played linebacker the past year or two, that he learned that, when he was trying to figure out where the running back was going, he kind of learned that technique of if you give him the okie doke, and then hit the cutback where the linebacker has vacated their spot. It's a great move to go with.
Yeah, no, you're right, because if you think about it, right, like play side linebackers crashing the gap. Your backside linebacker is what he does is by really kind of setting up that cutback is like your backside linebacker is stepping to the double team, right? You've got the center and the guard that are double teaming the D tackle in front of him, and by him going play side and then cutting it back, it gives that center or that guard the opportunity to double on the interior D lineman and then step up to the second level, which is typically that backside linebacker. And then at that point, boom, that's when you see him hit it. But you're right. Like when you play that position, you very rarely do you get linebackers that can, see it from the defensive side of the ball and then go back and run it on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you don't get that very often.
That's a great point, Travis.
The Iowa State had that one guy who switched from quarterback to linebacker, right? But
yeah, he was pretty good too. Yeah. He was fun to watch.
Yeah, but like you don't get it where they go switch and then switch back and then are able to take what they've learned at the other position and bring it back to their original position like Abram Smith has. Well, that's really an excellent point and something that I hadn't thought about at all. And
I wanted to say, Peter, about your turnovers. I think turnovers are always a weird thing to your turnovers. Excuse me. When you were talking about turnovers, you didn't turn the ball over, Peter.
I might as well have. It's fine.
They're kind of a weird thing to worry about as a fan. I mean, a guy fumbles the ball. What are you supposed to say? Like, I mean, is he going to do it in the future? I mean, you could have Brock Purdy who's throwing 3 interceptions every week, and then you worry about that the rest of the year, right? So I think it's totally right to be like, are we, practicing this well enough in practice where we're not going to be loose to the ball the rest of the year? But it's kind of one of those things that until I see it kind of happening more in the future, I'm not going to let a couple times really get me significantly worried. But I think you're totally right, Peter, to kind of just keep it on your radar and see what happens with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that in a game that could be as tight as like game like Iowa State could be, you don't want to have anything like that. That could be the difference in the game. Is a single turnover, you fumble the ball, ends up in the opponent's hands, and they're able to kick the game-winning field goal or something like that. Another concern that I had was on the other side of the ball, and I'm not sure how much of this is actually really a concern. And I think I kind of answered it myself, but we'll see. We didn't have any sacks against Mr. Bean on Saturday, and I was looking at it. I was like, you'd think against Kansas we should have, but our havoc rate was really high, which is tackles for loss, forced fumbles, interceptions, passes defensed, a couple of other things I forget. And then also our stuff rate, which is the number of running plays that are tackled at or behind the line of scrimmage. We had a 20% stuff rate, which is really solid. And so I'm looking at those numbers and seeing that, and I'm thinking, we didn't get to the quarterback necessarily. And I don't know how much of that was Bean versus how much of it was us. But we were still making plenty of plays where we were tackling for losses or at least preventing gains. So we were putting them behind the sticks as much as we possibly could, I thought. And so is that a concern for you guys on the defensive side of the ball? Or is it something that, it was Kansas, we were still getting to him, not worried about the fact that there weren't as many sacks proper in the game?
I mean, I think it's a worry in the sense that I think it's a weakness of the team, but it's not. It kind of just depends on what you mean by like worry. I guess like every team is going to have its strengths and weaknesses, and I think definitely pass rush is definitely one of Baylor's weaknesses this year. They're kind of in a unique spot where their two best pass rushers are off-ball linebackers. So that's the star position, Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard coming from inside. And the other thing is that Terrell just doesn't quite look the same yet to me this year. I think he's still. Koff, you had shoulder injuries, right?
I had the exact same injury. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's going to take him. I can just let you talk about this. I mean, how many games does it take to where you're popping with that shoulder game? I think he's still just a little bit hesitant. But just to finish talking about the pass rush, I mean, last year they had William Bradley King, who was a terrific pass rusher. I was actually watching a highlight from the Iowa State game last year just to see how they designed their offense and stuff against the Baylor defense. And there was a great highlight where Victor Obi, who's one of the pass rushers this year, a young guy, he's lined up opposite William Bradley King, and you can see them both rushing the passer on the same play. And you see when William Bradley King gets up to the offensive tackle's hands, the offensive tackle puts his hands up, and William just, smashes them down like you're trying to break open a bag of ice and just rips through and gets right through the right tackle's arms. And Obi just kind of sticks his hands out there and plays contain. And I think you're seeing that Baylor just doesn't have a guy this year that has that plethora of pass rush moves. I mean, we saw that by the time James Lynch became a junior, he had all those moves, right? James Lockhart too, but it takes time to learn all those moves. A lot of those edge guys for Baylor this year are pretty young, or their best pass rushers are guys like Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard, who are coming off the ball. They're not on the line of scrimmage, and so they're not rushing the passer every time there's a passing down. So I think it's just going to be kind of a weakness for Baylor this year, but something that Aranda will just have to scheme around. So.
Travis, get him. Get him. He's right. We don't have a pass rusher. That's our issue. Our two pass rushers come from the linebacker position when we blitz. And that's tough if that's going to consistently be what our pass rush comes from, because that leaves you exposed, right? That goes back to that whole being predictable. It's all right, it's 3rd and long. We really want to have an impact on a pass rush. We know we can't put 3 or 4 on the line and get home. So that means when the linebackers is coming, okay, which one's coming and how do we slip behind them? And so I think it's that simple. William Bradley King was that guy last year. The big D-line get that we got in the transfer portal this year was Apu, and he's not a huge pass rusher we've come to find at this point. And so, yeah, that's a huge concern. When we didn't get home against Texas State, that was my first red flag. And then you look at when we did get the sacks against TSU, it was the linebackers that were coming off. And then this past game, no sacks, right? With a really mobile quarterback, which we'll see from time to time. And so the more talented quarterbacks that we get that can throw the ball deep, and the longer that our guys have to be in coverage, the more potential issues we're going to run into. And so, yeah, that's a big concern of mine.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about with Kansas, or shall we go ahead and just use this to transition into Iowa State? Because, that's a nice transition. Yep. So you have Brock Purdy, who not as quick as Mr. Bean was this past weekend, but is considered something of he is capable of making something happen with his feet, I should say.
He makes plays, man. Yeah, he makes plays.
Yeah, so it's a yeah,
for both teams.
Yeah, I was gonna. Okay, there we go.
What was that?
What?
I said he makes plays for both teams.
Yeah.
I will never ever forget his the funniest. It wasn't really a pick six because it was a lateral, but his play against TCU last year where he.
As he was falling backwards and just kind of punked the ball.
It just was hey, you TCU guy, you look like you'd like to have the ball. Just throws it directly to the guy, and he just thanks, and just walks into the end zone. It was
funny. One of the tweets that I've had that's blown up more than any other one was when was it last year that they were in the Big 12 championship? Yeah, and I tweeted before the final drive, they were down by a touchdown or a field goal or something like that to go to the end of the game. And I said, Purdy's either going to lead them down for a touchdown or he's going to throw a mind-bendingly stupid interception. And it was, of course, the latter. And so many people were like, wow, amazing prediction. I was like,
have you watched this man play? It's one or the other.
That did not take, that was the easiest thing I've ever tweeted. It was I'm going to take a drink and then just tweet this off and then take another drink.
It's not even a prediction.
It was not a prediction. It was not that hard. But it was funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Feast or famine with that man for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has been a little bit of both this year. I didn't get the chance to see any of the game against UNLV. But they, of course,
there was nothing of real value in that game. He looked good again, but UNLV is that bad.
Yeah, they haven't won a game since 2019, so it's basically their version of Texas Southern. And yeah, they're probably a little bit better than Texas Southern, but that's why the score was slightly lower than the score against Texas Southern was. But yeah, it's He looked really good in that game. He did not look good against Iowa. He looked
terrible,
really bad against Iowa.
Don't you dare bring in-state Iowa State into the Big 12 Iowa State conversation, Peter. Iowa versus an FCS opponent, i.e. Northern Iowa and or South Dakota State and or North Dakota State and or whoever else it is a completely different team than when they step into the Big 12.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, even in the Cyhawk game, like even in that one, he didn't look great. Like, so
it's funny because Iowa State probably has the most to lose if the Big 12 ever implodes. But they do their damnedest to make sure that the Big 12 looks as bad as possible by doing terrible in the non-conference and then winning the Big 12. So, trying to win the Big 12.
Wake up. I don't know if you guys need to like drink your milk in the morning or if you need Wheaties for breakfast, but like whatever they don't do. And you know, guys, like if you think about it realistically, the reason why they struggle so much against like Iowa every year is because like that ground and pound game that gets them, you know, the success that it does in the Big 12, that's not going to fly in the Big 10. That's what everybody's doing in that league. But no one is doing that down here. Everybody's trying to spread you as wide as you can, run the zone read, and throw the ball deep. And so that game doesn't translate, whereas it's still going to translate a little bit against us because they still got.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You've got him. His stat line is decent. He's 70% for 625 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Those 3 interceptions did come all against Iowa. He had no touchdowns in that game. It was a pretty miserable game. You have Breece Hall, who is averaging 4 yards per carry and hasn't been necessarily setting the world on fire like everybody thought he would. What?
Statistically. I was just going to say statistically because he looks good.
Does he?
When you watch him play. He looks good.
I watched the Iowa game, and what I saw in Iowa, I wasn't really impressed with, but that was just the Iowa game. That was, like Coffee was saying, that's the style of play that they, that's what they play, and so they were ready for that. But I didn't go back and look at his numbers through 3 games, but I remember last year there was all the hype about Chuba Hubbard with Oklahoma State, and they were the team that was supposed to ascend, and he looked fairly pedestrian through the course of that season. And I was curious. I mean, if you're saying that you think he looks really good, then maybe he's not. But I was wondering if the hype around Breece Hall, because I know a lot of people had him as their preseason Big 12 player of the year, offensive player of the year, that sort of thing. And he hasn't quite lived up to that sort of expectation yet. Do you think that's true? Or is it it's too early. We haven't really seen him emerge yet.
He's the most threatening running back in the conference. And he's still one of the most threatening running backs in the country. Like, yeah, his stat line doesn't show it. And he had a really big time fumble that eventually was like the pendulum swing in the Cyhawk game. Like they could recover it for a touchdown and like they just couldn't recover from it. But like I don't look at him and think to myself like this guy can't dominate this game. Like if you don't take him seriously, like he could absolutely be the difference in any game that he plays in.
Yeah.
So I think this is really good. Talking about Breece Hall is a really good segue. Just talking about run game and college football in general, because I think it can be a kind of a tough concept to grasp. For a lot of fans, why aren't we running the ball? Some fans will look at numbers after the game, see we threw it 40 times and only ran it 20 times. Why not run the ball more, right? And so I think that's kind of what you saw for Breece Hall against Iowa. Iowa had no respect for Brock Purdy in the pass game, so they were always, they were fully gapped out in the run game. And all I mean by that is that they had every gap accounted for, right? They had more dudes there to tackle him than Iowa State had to block. And there is not a running back on the planet who is going to put up successful numbers when they're facing unfavorable numbers on every play, right? But when you look at him, I mean, that dude, Breece Hall makes guys miss in the backfield more than just about anybody. I mean, actually, remember Iowa State's old running back, David Montgomery, how he could just make so many dudes miss?
Yeah.
Very similar in that end, except for Breece Hall's a much better athlete. So when he actually makes you miss, he can actually...
athletic standpoint. Oh, yeah, Breece Hall, exactly. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he David Montgomery can make 2 or 3 guys miss, but he was kind of like Shock Linwood in the sense that he couldn't take it to the house because he didn't have the speed. And But Breece Hall, I mean, if he makes 2-3 guys miss, I mean, he's taking it to the house. And I think we've seen some of that with Baylor losing contain on quarterbacks in the backfield, but also just kind of in general. It's almost a double-edged sword when you get penetration against Iowa State, because if you get overzealous and you try and make too big of a tackle against him and he slips by you, that's almost worse than if you just tackled him 3 yards down the field for a normal gain, if that makes sense. So anyway, yeah, he's good. He's really good at making guys miss in tight spaces. That'll be something to watch for sure.
Do you think that what you want to see from the defense, from our defense specifically in this game, is the same sort of a game plan as Iowa brought, where you try and have gap integrity, and containment to account for, and then let your secondary sort of handle the receivers and make Brock Purdy beat you?
Yes. Sorry, I wasn't sure if Coffee wanted to answer that first. But
yeah, I was going to say
yes.
The recipe for success against Iowa State is to contain Purdy and then let him give the game away. Like you kind of alluded to it earlier, like he's going to go out there and at some point his fundamentals are going to break down and he's going to make bad passes. He's going to turn the ball over. They might fumble, but they give the game away. And so you have to hold your position. You have to play your style for as long as you can, and then they will give it away. Heck, you saw it last year, right? How many times do we have to see this to know the turnovers will come, and that's what's going to keep us in the game?
Coffee, can you talk about how exciting it is as a defender to know that you're bringing a blitz and that quarterback is going to have to throw a hot route, and you're either going to get to smash somebody or you can jump that route for the pick? Because I think you're going to see a lot of that against Iowa State, because I think Baylor's going to bring some pressure, and they're going to know he's going to have to get the ball out fast. And a lot of times he makes bad decisions when he gets the ball out fast like that.
Yeah, man, that's in the scouting report on Sunday night. Like, that's before you even go home for your off day on Monday. You guys know who this is. Fortunately, we played him enough. Hell, he got benched, against Iowa. Like, this guy's going to go out there and make mistakes, and all you have to do is just mix things up. You just have to throw the timing off a little bit. You have to maybe jump a couple routes just to make him second guess his decision making. Like, from all the mistakes that he's made, whether it was in the Big 12 championship game last year or it's been early on in this season, that he's second guessing his decision making right now. Like, one win against UNLV in Vegas isn't going to make him feel like he's the Brock Purdy of old again. And so as soon as you can go out there and kind of rattle his feathers a little bit, you're going to make plays, and you have the opportunity on a national stage to make maybe Big 12 Player of the Week. Like, you got all of these juices flowing in your head. Like, let's go out there and get this dub, beat a ranked team, and then next thing you know, we're not getting 13 votes in the coaches poll. You're getting some pretty important votes in the AP poll.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I feel like I'm confident in this defense that the way that our defense plays and our style, we can replicate what Iowa was able to do against them, and not recreate exactly, but at least in the results. I feel like this defense has been solid against the run thus far, and even last year. Well, I guess last year was pretty rough, but they moved away from. Breece Hall in that game, which was sort of our saving grace. But if we can do that, if we can get them to move away from him and try and beat us with Brock Purdy, I really like our chances in shutting their offense down.
I don't really think that Iowa State is going to be able to move the ball well against Baylor. And that's kind of why I was talking so much about sound tackling against Breece Hall, because I think their offense is going to be very much reliant on hitting those big plays in the run game. And simultaneously, like we talked about, if Baylor's pass rush, even though it hasn't been that great, when they are on those blitzes, contain. You send 4 guys, you send 5 guys. I don't even really care if they get them on the ground. The only time Purdy really makes plays is once he gets out of the pocket, and then he can kind of isolate on one receiver and make a good throw. But if you can keep him in the pocket, get his feet dancing, that's where I think Baylor can make some good plays. And I think that's another really exciting thing about this week is Iowa State is extremely well coached. They have good game plans. One thing that was fun was I kind of thumbed through 3 different games preparing for this week, and their game plans were different against every team. You can tell that they really scout their opponents. And so Baylor definitely does have some weaknesses defensively. I think you're probably going to see them target Christian Morgan in coverage, see if he can hold up downfield. I think you're going to see they're going to test Raleigh Tejada in the short game, in the sense of Xavier Hutchinson's a 6'2" guy. Raleigh Tejada is a 5'9", 5'10" guy. I think a lot of Baylor fans are not going to be excited if we're giving up an 8-yard completion on 3rd and 7, which is something we've seen in the past. So I think Iowa State's going to have a good game plan, and I think they're going to do it as well as they can. But I don't think they're going to be able to regularly move the ball. But I will be interested to see, how they which Baylor defenders they choose to target, because they're going to have to go after somebody. So
yeah. Shifting over to the offensive side of the ball, I think, I think I'm with you that I think we're going to be able to shut down or at least limit the effectiveness of the offensive of Iowa State's offense. The real concern that I have is on the defensive side of the ball, because this is, it's without a doubt the best defense we've faced thus far this year, but there's a good chance that this is the best defense we might face all year. They are incredibly talented. They have multiple playmakers. They have multiple guys that are, that have multiple sacks and tackles for loss on the season already. You've got Mike Rose, who we talked about in the preseason. Jake Hummel are your two linebackers that are just absolute playmakers. Then their pass rush is led by Will McDonald, and I'm going to try to not butcher this name, Enyi Uwazurike. I looked that up. Yes, I went and looked it up to make sure that I didn't just completely torture that name. Uwazurike. And those are sort of the anchors of that entire defense, and they are incredibly disruptive. You look at the advanced stats box score from the Iowa game, and they were disruptive. They held Iowa to basically no points towards the end of the game. Like it was a.
You look at the simple stats box score; they gave up 170 yards. You don't usually lose a game giving up 170 yards. That's crazy.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so they run a 3-3-5, and this is going to be a real test for Gary. And you kind of wish that he was able to sort of ease into the Big 12 slate a little bit more than this. But I don't know. What do you think the keys are to shutting down this offense and getting yardage against them?
Yeah, for starters, the 3-3 stack is a nasty defense. I hate the 3-3 stack. like West Virginia runs it, TCU runs it, and Iowa State runs it. And so, man, I got to tell you, we got to run the ball well on first down. If you look at what all of our issues pretty much last year ran into, it's really as simple as run the ball well on first down. Don't get into second and long situations and keep the playbook open. And as long as we can challenge their DBs on the outside, this is a heck of a defense. And Travis, you alluded to it earlier. This is a really well-coached team. So they're going to have different looks that they're going to show. So 3-3, what confuses me, I guess, or what frustrates me so much about the 3-3 stack is it can look so many different ways. You can have 3 down linemen, you can have 4 down linemen, you can have 5 down linemen, you can have 5 linebackers. You can have all of these different looks that are going on. And what my concern is that Gary sees it and freaks out a little bit. And so I think that we've just got to make sure that on first down we get it at a minimum 3 yards on first down so that the playbook is open so that we can go out there and kind of continue to play our game. Because once we get in those second long situations, that defense can look and make itself feel 1,000 different ways. And then that puts us in third and long situations where we're just one-dimensional. And so that's what I'm looking for. But, yeah, this is a defense, just to kind of throw this out there, this is a stat that I think is crazy. Going into the last 8 games all the way back into 2020, this is a team that hasn't given up more. They've only given up 25 points in the second half, period, in the last 8 games.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's crazy. And so when I think about what this offense needs to do, you need to score in the first half. Because this defense at the halftime, like I said, being well coached, figures it out in the second half. And so they're going to have to go out there and get those points early. And then, like I said, keep yourself out of sticky situation.
Travis, I saw you we have our little video going. I saw you when I was talking, shaking your head a little bit. What about you? What are your thoughts?
This is what I'm pumped for. I'm amped. I know people think the nerds and the, Travis, the advanced stats guy or the scheme guy. I am so excited for this side of the ball, this matchup. And the reason I'm so excited is I think there are 3 or 4 ways that Coach Grimes on the Baylor's offensive coordinator could choose to attack this defense. And they just had to pick one on Sunday or whatever it is and get after it. But the only quibble I would have with what Coffee said, we got to be able to run the ball on first down. I would just say we got to be able to move the ball on first down. I don't care whether we're throwing it or whether we're running it. Like, I actually think that's a really big key because I think there's kind of two, broadly speaking, I think there's kind of two main tactics that Baylor could use this game. I think against Iowa State defense, the way they play their zone base coverages on standard downs, what I mean by that is like a 1st and 10 or a 2nd and 6 or something like that. The throwing lanes are always there but you have to be able to be patient and consistent, and you have to be accurate. There are always going to be holes in the zone. And so I'll be really curious to see if Baylor's willing to come out and say, hey, look, we've got a great new quarterback and we trust him, and we're going to throw the ball on 1st down and get 7 yards every time, and see if you adjust Iowa State. I think that's kind of what I would like to see coming out, because this Iowa State front seven is nasty. I mean, they're nasty. Their defensive ends, like all of them are redshirt seniors. Like, I don't even know how that happens. Like all of them, they're so good. They have so many defensive ends that they moved one of them to nose tackle just to get him on the field. That guy Wuzarike. I mean, he's a monster. Their middle safeties, a kid named Isheem Young. He's nasty. He's like, y'all remember Chris Miller, obviously playing that middle safety position. All he would do is sit there flat-footed, read where the ball is going, and just get after it. I mean, he's the same way. So I really don't want to see Baylor just slam their head against a wall on 1st down if the numbers aren't there. And that's the thing I want to see. Because, when you watch Iowa State play Oklahoma, that middle safety, Isheem Young, he's not sitting there flat-footed reading the run. He's just playing the pass all day long. He doesn't care about what OU's doing on the ground. But when they were playing Iowa, I mean, he was at the line of scrimmage within a second of the ball being snapped. So I'll be really curious on those first few possessions. If you're looking for something to watch while you're on the field, is look at that middle safety, that guy that's in the deep middle of the field. And does he look like he's triggering hard on the run game, or does he look like he's sitting back there to look for whether Tyquan Thornton's running a deep post route or something like that? That'll be something to watch to see whether, what they think Baylor's going to do and then how Baylor responds. I could talk for way too long about all this, but in general, I think that the main question is, does Iowa State pack the box on early downs and try and stop the run? And if they do, does Baylor try and attack them downfield, or do they stay back and try and bet that they're just kind of front 5 guys can handle the run? And then does Baylor stick with the run, if that makes sense? I think it's kind of a cat and mouse game, playing with numbers in the box to see, who's going to be willing to take the shots versus go with the run game whenever the numbers are there, or if they aren't, if all that makes sense.
And I love that take because, we talked about, and maybe we'll do it against TCU, but we've talked about the 3-3 stack before. And, Cliff Odom, who I played with, who coached at TCU under Patterson, always talked about, there's always this safety that's a stud. There's this guy that gets to roam, and you can tell what style of play, if they're having more of attacking, or if it's more pass happy, or if they're going to blitz, whatever it's going to be, by what that guy's doing. And so, that's a wonderful point that you pointed out, that, watch him, because you're going to know how everything else fits off him, because that's kind of their stud that's going to dictate how things go.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to see Baylor do schematically, just as a brief point, is I think they could do some fun stuff with, it's true. I mean, Baylor just has way more speed than Iowa State does on the back end, right? But it's kind of risky to just sit there back there in the pocket and wait for them to get open deep all game. But I think this game you might see some interesting stuff where through formations, if people will know what a bunch formation is, where you kind of have everybody lined up near the line of scrimmage, even if it's just a bunch of wide receivers, doing some stuff to get guys like Josh Fleeks, guys like Treston Ebner lined up, matched up to where they know the rules of Iowa State's defense, to where they can get them on linebackers, because Iowa State's linebackers are 255 pounds. I would love to see Treston Ebner running a wheel route against one of those linebackers. I would love to see Josh Fleeks streaking down the middle of the field against Mike Rose. So I think you're going to see a lot of formational diversity to see for Grimes in the offense, to see, okay, how can we line up to ensure that we get the best matchup on every snap possible?
Yeah. Absolutely. I really think that we're going to see, and this is something that people talk about. We sort of ask questions about previous years, where it's we show vanilla looks as much as possible in the offseason. Are they going to really start to open up the playbook? And that always never really materialized because they never really cared about it. But what you've heard Aranda talk about thus far when talking to the media about their game plan and their offensive scheming has been, we've done what we needed to do, and all we've needed to do has been this. And so it's been incredibly vanilla and straightforward because it's worked. And so it's we don't need to show extra stuff because we haven't needed to pull it out against the opponents that we faced. And so I'm really curious to see what sort of things they start to pull out of the hat for this game, because you know that they've got stuff ready. And we haven't.
And they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely have to against this defense. And the other thing, we haven't seen a ton of utilizing Gary's feet as a weapon. I mean, we've seen it here and there, like enough to get some film on it so that defenses have to account for it in their preparation, but not really pulled it out and like showcased it, you know? And so I'm really curious to see how much of that is used on Saturday.
I think you're going to see them have 3 or 4 plays. And specifically, I think you're going to see them use these plays in very critical situations where it's like 3rd and 7, and they want to be able to know that they can set up a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 1. And so they don't want to throw the ball necessarily. And I think you're going to see some interesting creative scheme used with his legs working off the backside there to make sure that they can definitely get, the 5 or 6 yards to set up a manageable 4th down or even get it there. So watch out for critical situations for them to either use his legs or very clearly use him like kind of as a decoy, or however, make sure that they have to account for him essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that quarterback power. Look, that quarterback power with the lead blocker from the running back is just like, you put a hat on a hat, it's Gary one-on-one to like a safety. Like
with Abram in front of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Right? Like this just exactly. That's just going to be so.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any final thoughts about the preview before we head to do picks and then get out of here, because we're kind of running a little bit over.
Should I let somebody do my picks so I don't blow up this week? I'm not good at picking. I already tell people like I'm the worst picker I know.
You're not, though, because you have me to contend with, and you know me. So, although I have been doing better, just to give you a quick update, or any final thoughts before we go to picks.
I feel like you had some, Travis.
Yeah, I've got one final thing, and it's for the fans, because this is going to be an awesome atmosphere, right? And one of the things that we're doing this year, we as in the Baylor football, is we're going forward on 4th down all the time.
Love it,
and it's awesome, right?
Love it.
But it's easy to love it when you're 6 or 7 or however we are this year. And I love going for 4th and 1 when you're on your own 40-yard line. I think it's the right move. But it's not the right move because it works 100% of the time. Peter's grimacing right now. Don't listen to Peter. It is the right move to go for it on 4th and 1 from your own 40-yard line. But all I was going to say is, and Aranda's talked about this in this press conference, he said he knows by doing this that it's not always going to work. And he wants to see his team respond. And so I don't know if it happens against Iowa State, but if we're going for it on 4 4th downs, you're probably not going to get all 4 of them. And so as fans, if there's an opportunity where you feel like you're let down, amp that team back up. The defense is about to be coming out there, and they might not be in a great situation. So I think it'll be a fun opportunity to have the teams back, have Aranda's back. It'll be fun.
I love that. I loved that quote where he was talking about that going for 4th down, and just the fact that he's challenging his team. I'm continually impressed with him as a head coach. Like he made some mistakes last year, and there were some things that people were questioning about. And I feel like he went back, and being the very thoughtful, analytical person that he is, like took those things to heart, analyzed what it had gone on, what had gone wrong, and has really actively worked on those things. And one of them being punting. Yeah, no more punting from your opponent's 30-yard line or whatever.
Although our actual punting still isn't that great, but oh well.
Yeah, well that's true.
We'll work on that. But real quick, a couple stats on that. The 4th down. So leading the Big 12 with 6 4th down conversions, 6 or 7. The only 4th down that we haven't converted was at the end of the 4th quarter. Is 4th and 17 against Texas State. So yeah, I love going for it on 4th.
Yeah. My grimace was more of a just Iowa State at our own 40. Yeah, but if they do it, like I'm all on board. The thing
Brock
is,
Brock Purdy might throw it away if we do. Right, go for it the next play and just boom back to it.
Might just give it right back. You never know. So
one of the things that bothers me about 4th downs is like people will say like, well, if you have a great defense, punt the ball away and let them defend. Whereas I've always said, if you have a great defense, then why not risk putting them in a quote unquote bad situation? If they're so good, then you can rely on them to even win. So I don't know.
That's a really good point. I like that. Okay, good stuff. Great stuff. I'm excited. And yeah, by the way, like wear your gold shirt on Saturday because they're asking us to wear our gold shirts. And I mean, I don't, if you don't love gold, I can understand that, and I don't either, but wear it anyway.
You love gold.
I love gold. Yes. But be loud, be excited, because this is a huge game, and it's a chance for a statement. For I think really the first statement game under the Aranda era that they can really say, you guys underestimate us. We are here, and we're a force to be reckoned with. And I really think that that's true, and that this is that opportunity on Saturday. So with that said, let's jump into picks of the week and get those done, and then we will get out of here. Coffee, last week, I'm sorry to say you were 2-6, bringing you to 8-17 on the year. Fank was 3-5, coming to 14-11. I was 4-4, meaning that I am 10-15 on the season. Okay, so we have Fank provided us with games that we're going to look at, and also gave me his picks as well. So I'll read those out for each of us, as well as a little text that he wanted me to give you about the Baylor game. We'll start off with the Texas A&M game versus Arkansas. This is being played in Jerry World Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Texas A&M is a 5.5 point favorite in this game. I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to start and say I think A&M covers the spread. I like them by a touchdown here. Arkansas they've proven themselves to be plucky. Oh, you know what? Ugh. I forgot the Texas A&M's quarterback situation. Their quarterback broke his leg or his ankle or whatever. So you know what? I'm going to stick with it. I'm just going to stick with it. And if I'm wrong, then what does it matter? So I will go Texas A&M minus the 5.5 here. Fank disagrees. He went with Arkansas. I don't know if he's going Arkansas outright or if he's just taking the points there. Coffee, what do you think?
Oh gosh,
this is a tough one.
It is a tough one. Well, I think if you look traditionally, is this game played in Dallas again, Jerry World, like it usually is?
Yeah.
A&M owns that series. I'm going to go with A&M.
Okay. And Travis, what do you think?
Blue Pig.
All right. Ooh, are you outright or just against the spread?
Yeah, outright. Why not? I don't care.
Yeah, I know you're not getting tracked here, so yeah. You're fine. You can just say whatever you
sucks.
want.
A&M's quarterback sucks. So,
well, that's true. Okay, moving ahead to by the way, the the national slate for this week kind of stinks. Like, there were not many games. I was like looking through the list and was like, these are not very compelling. Like, the Big 12 games, very interesting. The rest of the nation, not so much. But usually when that happens, that's when fireworks actually end up happening in a week. So who knows? Clemson is a 12-point favorite at North Carolina State. That's a lot of points. But Fank is going Clemson minus the points on this one. Coffee will go with you.
Yeah, I'm going Clemson as well.
Clemson just hasn't looked good, though, thus far. That's my thing. I don't know, Travis, what do you think?
Baylor has a better quarterback than Clemson does. So, but I'm going to pick Clemson.
Yeah, I think I'm going to reluctantly agree with you. We're 4 for 4 on that one. Now we're going to move into the Big 12 because the rest of the games are actually interesting. We have our weekly Kansas chicken bet. Duke, they travel to Duke and Duke is a 16-point favorite in this game. Duke has not been fantastic, but it's Kansas on the road. Fank sent me Fank's pick here is Kansas against the spread, and it was one of those like the squiggly like cringy emoticons or emojis with it. Like, he's like, I don't know if this is right. It was pretty funny. So he's going Kansas. I'm going to go Duke here because until Kansas shows me that they can cover a spread, I'm not going with them. So I am going to go with Duke. What about you, Travis?
I like Kansas to cover here.
All right.
Duke is terrible, and I think too. Kansas is competent.
Yeah, I think this is a Duke team that dropped week 1 to Charlotte, had a pretty close game until second half against North Carolina A&T, and then beat a Northwestern that's proven to be not very good. So I think Kansas covers too.
All right. That will provide us a little bit of separation when I am inevitably wrong in that game. We have next the battle for the Iron Skillet. SMU is headed to Fort Worth to play TCU. TCU is a 9-point favorite in this game. Travis, I will let you lead off on this one.
Do you know how badly I want to take SMU here? Man, I don't know. I'm going to take TCU to cover. I don't want to, but whatever.
So they're going to win by 10 at least. Fank disagrees. He is taking the points on this game. He said that SMU covers, but TCU still wins. I'm going to agree with him on that. I think that they cover. I think SMU covers, but TCU still takes it. They win by a touchdown.
I think SMU covers too. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think TCU is going to be pretty good. I think they take a little bit to ramp up during the course of the season too. But I think SMU has some firepower.
Yep. Yeah, man, their Hail Mary to win that game last weekend was
electric.
Phenomenal.
Electric.
I was holding my our 4-month-old and like screamed in her ear. It was not great.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My eldest was 3 weeks old when RG3 hit Terrence Williams in the end zone to beat Oklahoma, and she was not happy with me at all in that moment. But it did not matter because I was happy. Let's see. We've got next going to Texas Tech is traveling to Texas. They're playing at DKR on Saturday. This is an interesting game because it opened at Texas minus 13. So Texas was the 13-point favorite when it opened, and it immediately dropped to 8.5 and is stuck right about there. So Texas is an 8.5-point favorite game, point favorite against Texas Tech. Coffee will go with you.
I'll take the points all day on that. I think Tech's got a chance to go down there and win that football game, and I don't think it'd be all that surprising if they did.
Woo. What about you, Travis?
I mean, Tech isn't great, but they've never been great when they've been playing Texas close all these past few years. So why not take them?
Taking those points. I am going to take the points as well. I'm going to say that Texas wins. They can win by a touchdown. It can be fairly close, but Tech covers. Fank is going Texas all day. So yeah, read into that what you will.
Of course he is.
I know.
He has all these picks when he can hide in Hawaii during the game.
I know,
That's why
right?
this is, yeah.
Okay. Kansas State heads to Oklahoma State. This is one of the most interesting lines to me. Oklahoma State is a 6-point favorite in this game. Travis, what do you think?
Insane. I think that's insane. So yeah, I'm taking Kansas
State. They came up
State.
with those numbers. Yeah, how did they even? That is shocking.
What do they know that we don't? That's the thing, right?
I mean, I think they're not overreacting to, but Skylar Thompson was really good and he's hurt now. Will Howard is not great, but Spencer Sanders also is not great. So
we all thought that last week that they would crater and Nevada would take them down last week, and Will Howard looked pretty good against Nevada, and they won. So I'm going to agree.
I think it might be like 14-13. Like it might be really low score.
Super ugly. Yeah. I'm going to agree. I think I'm going to go K-State outright here, not just against the spread, but I think they win the game. Coffee, what do you say?
I don't like this. I just don't know enough about either team right now to really make this pick.
Yeah.
I'll go Oklahoma State here.
Okay. Fank went Kansas State outright to win the game as well. West Virginia at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 16.5-point favorite in this one. Another interesting line just because of its size. Oklahoma has not been phenomenal against the spread this year. Fank went Oklahoma to cover the 16.5 points. I am going to take the points here. I'm not confident in this game at all, but I'm going to take the points. That's just a massive line, and Oklahoma hasn't looked phenomenal thus far. So yeah, take the points. What about you?
Yep.
You taking them?
Ooh, I'll hop in here. Yeah, I'll take the points too.
Okay.
Like, until Spencer Rattler really shows me that he can be a consistent, dominant quarterback, like, I'm going to stop chasing him around like he's the next coming of Sam Bradford.
Yeah. Agreed. Travis?
I agree with what Coffee's saying, but as much as I dislike Spencer Rattler, I think Jared Daigie's even worse. And I don't know. I think after kind of a lackluster last week, maybe Oklahoma turns it around and puts a beating on him in this game. So.
Sort of in the solid verbal parlance, the neck crack game sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. If it was at West Virginia, I think the point spread would be totally different. It's kind of one of those weird home away makes a huge difference games, maybe.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that for sure. Finally, we have our game. Iowa State is 7-point favorite at Baylor. This spread was super interesting. It opened at like 6.5, jumped up to 7.5. Then immediately dropped to 4.5, and then within a couple of hours had moved back to -7.5 and has sort of stabilized at a 7-point margin. Coffee, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
Yeah, because you're a bully.
You know what? I haven't gone first in a while, so I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to take the points. I think that it's close. I have no idea how, I'm not super confident I'm confident in taking the points. I think Baylor absolutely can win this game. I'm not confident enough to outright predict it, but I think that Baylor covers the spread and potentially wins. So I don't think it's a 7-point game. I think it's closer than that. If Iowa State wins it. So Coffee, I will go to you now.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to sound like too much of a homer here on this pod, but this is a game that I think that we win, not because I think we're just so much better than Iowa State. I just think they're going to find a way to lose it. Whether it's a turnover or it's just poor decision-making or they blow a coverage. I think that we're going to go out there and win this game. It's going to be the first real marquee win for Aranda's, head coaching career.
I would not say no to that. Travis, I will go to you, and then I'll read Fank's thoughts.
Baylor wins, for sure. Or not, just kidding, not for sure.
He's locking it up, folks.
No, I think Iowa State's a very good team. I think their defensive front is incredible. I just think Baylor has good matchups in this game. I think they'll be able to get some guys loose on offense with some speed downfield, do some interesting things with Ebner in the pass game. And Purdy's gonna, we'll get our three turnovers from Purdy. So I'm waffling on the score, but I'm thinking something like 27-17, 27-21, something like that.
Wow, I would take a 10-point win. That would be incredible.
Yep.
Okay, Fank's prediction is Iowa State 31, Baylor 30. So he is taking the points. He says, super tight game the whole way. I want to see us do it before I fully believe, but I very much think we can win this game, especially if we can slow down their run game and put more pressure on Purdy to beat us by himself. Offensively, we can move the ball, but we have to finish drives. None of this fumbling in Iowa State territory stuff. So those are Fank's thoughts. Oh, by the way, he also did request this. And so this is your semi-regular reminder that the Baylor men's basketball team are the reigning national champions. So there you have that. That's going to do it for this week. Travis Roeder, how can the good people get in touch with you? How can they follow your stuff? Give you a second to plug yourself.
Well, my social security number is 423. I'm just kidding. Just at Travis_Roeder on Twitter. I recently got over 1,000 followers. That was crazy. It's just kind of weird. When I was a student, I wrote a couple things, and Mark, who runs the site or used to run the site, but still is really involved, was like, "Hey, why don't you write a few articles for us?" And then Kendall gave me a little stipend and asked me to write more. And it's just been really fun to see it. Honestly, what's most rewarding is just that people care and it's fun. I just love talking ball, clearly, as I talked for like 3 hours on this podcast and kept y'all too late tonight. But
no,
I appreciate it. So yeah, at Travis_Roeder, love to talk ball. So yeah.
And Travis, I just have to say that it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Your stuff.
Yeah, dude, you crushed it. That was awesome.
Yeah, your stuff is like, it's fun because I remember you starting off and like watching you just sort of come into your own over the past several years it's been a lot of fun to watch, and I'm really glad that you reached out to me and we were able to get you on the show, because this has been delightful. This has been absolutely delightful, a ton of fun. We're definitely going to have you back on. But anything else, Coffee, before we get out of here?
Nah, man, Travis, seriously, this is awesome. Like, it was great having you on here. Wonderful insights. Clearly got a passion to, for the Bears and the game, and it was awesome to see it come out tonight. So, man, anytime you want to hop on here, let us know, particularly if it's a really late Wednesday and I'm tired and you want to take my spot. No, but it was awesome. No, I'm excited for the game on Saturday. Shout out to Byron Landor, Baylor legend, getting honored. I think like mid first quarter, something like that. My roommate from college. So,
hey, all right.
Excited to be down there. That's how old I am now. As guys that I played with are starting to get honored during the game. But no, it's cool. It's cool. Go Bears.
And I will be there with my 3 young girls in tow. It's my 5-year-old's first chance to go to a game, and I'm excited and nervous about what that's going to look like. But hope to see everybody there. Until then, for Travis, for Coffee, and for the absent David Fankhauser, I'm Peter Pope saying, sick 'em Bears, beat Iowa State, and we will talk to you next week. We'll see you.